Hey guys, it's good to be back and giving you another deck profile today. First off, I just want to say thank you guys. We're getting really close to 100 subscribers. I really appreciate the fact that you guys are watching these videos and you guys are like building these decks actually. It makes me very happy that you guys are using them as like a basis. I know some people don't agree with my ratios on like certain cards, but that's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Interesting, you know? You gotta experiment with yourself, you gotta test it in locals, maybe bring it to Nats if you can. You know, you just gotta... It's just working it out. A lot of the ratios is up to you, you know, but there's of course certain core cards that you need to have in decks. But I hope my videos are pretty good as a basis for you guys to build off of. But besides that, let's get into today's deck profile. Today I have a very unique deck, one that focuses on OTK, and it actually isn't Cyber Dragons, it is Skull Servants. Skull Servants are actually part of the white archetype, and the white archetype, not confused as the color white, but W-I-G-H-T, white, is used to basically fuel the graveyard for a King of the Skull Servants play, and King of the Skull Servants says for every Skull Servant that's in the graveyard, it gains 1,000 attack. However, every single white in the deck actually counts as a Skull Servant, which means that your King of the Skull Servants can usually get anywhere from 8 to 13,000 attack points, which means you can attack for game if they have something like a Barone, and they use their negate. If you're able to pump your King of the Skull Servants up to 11k, you're able to wipe the board with them just by attacking them straight, and they would lose the game from the OTK. It does a lot of damage. One of the interesting parts about it is the fact that Skull Servants can't go first, unfortunately. But we can substitute that by running a level 3 package in your White Princess and your White Mare, and actually Danger Tsuchinoko and Danger Jackalope, to be able to fuel a UDF line using the Ghost Trick rank 3 and rank 4, which is Alucard and Angel of Mischief. Using them to go into Ghost Trick Shot, bringing them over, and overlaying them into a UDF. Which means that you have an alright going first play. Unfortunately, UDF isn't really... It's not a good boss monster right now. You can bounce it with Draco back for a Brave player, and there's just so many ways to out it. You can banish it because it can still be targeted, but certain decks don't have ways to get over it, and it's an alright going first if your opponent forces you to go first. However, the deck excels in board-breaking potential. You have so many ways to discard your cards for board wipes using like Twin Twister or Super Poly. In this deck, we also run Lightning Vortex, which is kind of a worse Raigeki, but it's better for us because we can discard a card. And by discarding a card, we can trigger our danger effects, and we can actually trigger our Skull Servant effects. Because neither of them need to be sent to the graveyard by card effect, they just have to be sent to the graveyard or discarded. As such, the deck has great board breaking potential and the ability to play through multiple negates on a going second board, and is probably one of the better going second decks of this format, similar to like Cyber Dragons, I would say. Unfortunately, going second is still a bit iffy right now, especially with boards that can put up 5 or 6 negates. That's very hard to chew through. If anything, you might want to run a droplet. I don't have droplets, so I don't run them in this deck profile, but you can always use that to actually send your Skull Servants, and that will actually trigger them also, which is pretty cool. That's a tech choice that you guys can choose if you guys are going to Nats and want to run it, or if you guys want to actually just go to your locals and you have the Forbidden Droplets. But besides that, let's get right into the deck profile, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So to start off our Skull Servant package, we're going to be running 3, of course, Skull Servant, which is the vanilla. You don't want to see this in your opening, unfortunately, because it is a hard break. You can still discard it or use it for discard fodder for like a Super Poly or something, but overall it's not too great. I mean, it's 300, 200. It's kind of funny to have it. I mean, you have to run it, unfortunately. I've seen some Skull Servant lists in the past using 2, but 3 is definitely necessary because you want to trigger all 3 of your White Princess. In addition to that, you don't want to see this card in your opening, which is the Lady in White, which is the pair for Skull Servant, because you can actually send these, a pair of these, so Skull Servant and Lady in White, by sending White Prince to the graveyard. What White Prince says is if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 Skull Servant and 1 Lady in White from your hand and or deck to the graveyard, and then if this card's in your graveyard, you can banish 2 Skull Servants and this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 King of the Skull Servants from your deck. So, these fuel your White Prince, which allows you to get into your King of the Skull Servants. Unfortunately, because of the way that White Prince works, if you banish this and your Lady in White, along with the Skull Servant, that means you're dropping your King of the Skull Servant 3k to get him out. There's other ways you can get him out. Some of them are more favorable than others, but White Prince is the most consistent way. In addition to the White Prince, we're running 3 White Princesses in order to normal summon the White Princess so we can dump a White Prince. It also turns out that if White Princess is special summoned, it can send another White Prince to the graveyard, and this is not a once per turn. White Princess is also a hand trap in the sense that if you use it in the hand, all monsters on the field currently lose attack and defense equal to their own level or rank times 300. So if somebody has a level 8, they'll lose 2400 attack, which is a massive amount, and will allow you to swing over more easily because your King of the Skull Servants is only a level 1, meaning it loses 300 attack. However, you would want to use that, of course, before you bring out your King of the Skull Servants. And mind you, all these cards are actually called Skull Servant. Thus, they can fuel your King of the Skull Servant's attacks. The best card, I would say, for the Skull Servant archetype is actually, I'm going to move these, White Baking. White Baking is amazing right now. It's probably the best Skull Servant card because what it says is this card's name becomes Skull Servant while in the graveyard. If a level 3 or lower zombie monster you control would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can discard this card instead, which means you can protect your King of the Skull Servant or you can protect any white that you have because they're all level 3 or lower. You can also, funnily enough, protect a Unizombie because it's level 3, as long as you don't boost its level. And then it says, if this card is sent to the graveyard, which it will be sent out to the graveyard by its protection effect, you can discard, you can add 2 monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, except White Baking, that are either Skull Servant or specifically list Skull Servant in their text. Then discard 1 card. So this card, if you normal summon this and link it off for a Linkaribo, it fuels the whole archetype and allows you to go into like a 4K King of the Skull Servant right off the bat. What you will usually add off the White Baking is actually a White Mare and a, you will add a White Mare and you will add a White Prince. And then you will discard the White Prince, and then that will send the Lady in White and the Skull Servant, meaning that you're fueling your graveyard extremely efficiently. And you can also discard this off of so many things. Your danger package just makes us so good right now. We're running 3 White Mares. What White Mare says is this card's name becomes Skull Servant while in the graveyard. Every single white does that. You can discard this card and then target one of your banished Skull Servant or White Mares and return it to the graveyard. Or you can target one of your banished Lady in Whites or King of the Skull Servants and special summon it. So if you're, say, use Allure of Darkness, banish a King of the Skull Servants, what you can do is you can use White Mare to bring back the King of the Skull Servants and then attack for game if you have it. It's good for follow-up. It allows you to continue playing as if you've banished one or if somebody banishes it off a card effect. And also, the fact that you can summon back the Lady in White allows you to go into curious plays. Really good. Other than that White Mare, we're running, of course, the big boy himself, the main focus of the deck, triple King of the Skull Servants. King of the Skull Servants says the original attack of this card is the combined number of King of the Skull Servants and Skull Servants in your graveyard times 1000. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish one other King of the Skull Servants or one Skull Servant from your graveyard and special summon this card. So it actually has built-in protection from battle. However, usually it won't be run over, seeing that you might get it up to 6k, 7k, 10k. I don't see it getting run over by battle, but if it ever does, I guess you can bring it back. That effect doesn't matter, it's the fact that you can just beef this guy up. I believe we're running 21 white cards in the deck, meaning that if you have a single King of the Skull Servant on the field, you won't be able to get all of these in the graveyard, but oftentimes you're able to get around 12 to 15, meaning that your King of the Skull Servants will actually go up to 15k. And if they have any monster in attack position, that's game. Amazing, amazing cards. I love the Skull Servant archetype. It's just funny because of the fact of the lore behind it. You can search up some lore videos, but I believe it has something to be with the fact that Skull Servant becomes King of the Skull Servants, and he basically gets his family in White Mare, and then he also gets the White Princess and like White Prince and whatnot. There's this massive lore video I saw on YouTube earlier. I don't remember it exactly, but it's funny. Besides that, let's get into our danger package. We're actually going to run 1 Such and 1 Jackalope. Of course, they're limited. I would run more if they weren't because they're level 3s. The level 3 access allows you to go into your UDF plays easier, but you can also, they're really good because they're also dark. Since every single one of the Skull Servants is dark, is a dark zombie. As long as you have a Skull Servant plus like a Tsuchinoko and maybe like, let's say, a Bigfoot, what you can do is, because all of these are dark but different types, you can actually easily go into Curious using the dangers in the Skull Servants, meaning that you can dump a White Prince, or you can actually dump a Mizuki to revive a King of the Skull Servants, and then you can start milling from your deck, which is what you want to do. But we're running the 1 Such and we're running the 1 Jackalope, and then to continue with our danger package, we're running 3 Bigfoots. I know I have different arts, it's kind of disgusting, but it's what I could get. So you're going to run 3 Bigfoots. You're going to run the recently, well, technically 2 ban lists ago. You're going to run the Unlimited Danger Nessie, amazing card. We're going to run triple Danger Mothman, because Danger Mothman is a Dark World Dealings for our deck. If we discard the Mothman, what we can do is we both players draw a card and then discard it, which means that if you're not really negging off of it, it allows you to kind of go through your deck as much as you want, similar to like Danger Dark Worlds. And other than that, we're also running a triple Danger Chupacabra. The Danger Chupacabra is I would say it's swappable with Thunderbird. Bigfoot is level 8, and we don't have much other level 8 access except maybe like a Chaos Ruler, meaning that you can use the Chaos Ruler and like a Bigfoot, for example, to go into a Hope Harbinger. I just run the Chupacabra because I have it, and it also sometimes, if you discard the Chupacabra while you have a danger in the graveyard, you'll be able to like Monster Reborn the danger, which can be useful for Curious plays. That's the main reason I like it. Thunderbird is good for breaking boards because if you discard it off of a Twin Twisters, that means you're popping 3 set back row instead of 2, which is also pretty good. But for right now, I'm going to run the Danger Chupacabra, and I guess if you guys want to try changing it out and messing around with levels of dangers, you can swap out the triple Danger Chupacabra for triple Danger Thunderbird. But that actually rounds off our whole danger package. I think it's like 14 cards also. Now we're going to get off into our really small zombie package. We're going to be running a triple Unizombie, which is going to be hopefully our best normal summon in the deck. Unizombie is functionally another White Princess, because what you can do is the Unizombie can send the White Prince from deck to grave, being able to trigger its effect and being able to allow us to mill the Skull Servant and the Lady in White. In addition, it's also a little bit better because you can also discard from hand, which means that you are able to actually, you're able to trigger your danger effects, you're able to trigger any of your Skull Servants in your hand, like all the different ones. Like you can trigger a White Baking with Unizombie, which is amazing. In addition to that, we're also running triple Mizuki. It's a great mill off of Curious and also off of Chaos Ruler. You can also send it off of Curious so that you can extend by, say, like Mizuki effect, banish, bring back out a White Prince that we've already used so that we can continue extending and getting more Skull Servants to the graveyard. And I really do like it because you can also just send it off of all your spells and traps. Well, not traps, all your spells that you're going to be running that discard for cost. That rounds off all the monsters in the deck. It's I would say it's standard. Because we're running 60, we have to run all those monsters because we want to hide the bricks of Lady in White and Skull Servant. We don't want to see them in hand, unfortunately, because that means that we have to neg ourselves by using the White Prince to send from hand instead of deck, while we could be seeing more power cards. So to get on to the spell lineup, we're going to be running triple Allure of Darkness. We don't really care about banishing Skull Servants so much because we have so many. If you banish a King of the Skull Servants, per se, you can actually, off of Allure, you're able to bring it back with White Mare, which means that you don't have to waste your White Prince in the graveyard to bring out a King of the Skull Servants from the deck, which is really good. In addition to that, we're running one of the best power cards that came off the ban list a little while ago, which is actually Symbol of Heritage. Because every single white card is counted as Skull Servant, that means as long as you can dump White Prince to the graveyard once, Symbol of Heritage is live, because you have a White Prince, a Lady in White, and a Skull Servant in the graveyard, which are all Skull Servant, which means you can Symbol of Heritage back the White Prince, then you can link it off, and then after you link it off, you can basically trigger it again. Or you can Symbol of Heritage the White Princess, because she's counted as a Skull Servant, which means she special summon back, dumps another White Prince. So Symbol of Heritage is crazy in this deck. I'd say other than these, now we're going to get into our power cards. These are like our good ways to keep on playing. Allure allows us to get deeper in the deck. Symbol of Heritage allows us to combo further. But now we're going to get into our board breaking cards, which is going to be Triple Lightning Vortex. Really old card. Nobody would probably want to play it except for Dangers or Skull Servants, which are running both. What Lightning Vortex says, discard one card from your hand, destroy all face-up monsters on your opponent's side of the field. So basically, it's a worse Lightning Storm. However, we're able to discard the Skull Servants, and because they don't trigger because of cost, we don't need to worry about the cost because if they're sent to the graveyard, Lightning Vortex is actually a +1 for us, which makes it a lot better than Lightning Storm in this deck because of the fact that we can use it much more efficiently, sending like a White Prince or sending a White Baking, or even triggering our Dangers because this discards and Dangers don't care if they discard as cost. In addition to Lightning Vortex, we're running Triple Twin Twisters. I mean, of course this deck is about going second, so it doesn't really matter that we're running so many board breaking cards, and if we're forced to go first, there's not much we can do. If you lose the die roll in like the first game, you're usually going second anyways, which is fine for you. If you win the die roll, you just choose to go second, which means that they have to be more cautious, meaning that you have more ways to break their board, which is really good. Twin Twisters being amazing because you discard one card, then target 2 traps or spells on the field, and then destroy them. And it's up to, so you can actually discard to pop 1 if you really wanted to. Other than that, we're also running a Triple Super Poly. Super Poly also being another discard target because you can discard 1 card and then fusion summon 1 monster from your extra deck using monsters from either side of the field as fusion material. Really good in the meta right now because we have Despia being the top deck. You're able to break their boards maybe with a Starving Venom or a Mud Dragon. If the extra deck is not to your liking later on, you can also add some Despia cards if you want to really rip their board apart because you can't deal with them. But otherwise, these are like the main board breaking cards that we're running. Other than these, we're running these are the 1-ups. We're going to be running 1 Card Destruction. We're going to be running 1 Foolish Burial, which is obvious because we're going to be using it to send like White Baking or White Prince. We're going to run a single 1-for-1 because it's a send from the hand, which can trigger our Skull Servant and allows us to summon out a White Prince, which can be linked off. And we're actually running a single Ghost Trick Shot, which makes it the best Ghost Trick deck in the format, you know? I'm just gonna shout out to the Ghost Trick community who banned MBT. It's really good because you're able to do your level 3 lines and being able to go into a UDF on first turn or even second turn to be able to insulate yourself from like a nib, per se. I don't usually use it going second, but you still can. It's one of the bricks in the deck, including Skull Servant, but it's not so bad that you have to worry about it. I just run it because I like the UDF line. Other than that, that's actually all the spells and monsters in the deck. We don't run any traps because, of course, we're not going first. As such, we're running all just board-breaking spells, and we're running just a whole bunch of monsters. If you really wanted to, what I would say is you can probably swap out, if you don't want to do the UDF line, you can swap out like a Ghost Trick Shot. If you don't care about the extensions off Symbol of Heritage, you can drop those, and then you could basically put in like Droplets if you really wanted to, because Droplets sends the Skull Servants also to negate their board. I just don't have Droplets, and I just really like the Symbol of Heritage plays, and I also do like the UDF line. But let's get off into our extra deck now. And just so you know, this main deck, it's thick. It's 60 cards, which means that usually you won't see your bricks. Sometimes you might see 1, but you're never really going to open a hand full of nothing but bricks. You might open board-breaking cards in like a starter, and you usually use the board-breaking cards to fuel the starter by discarding it. But to get off into the extra deck, we're running 1 Leviathan, the Sea Dragon. This can be used to actually bring back a White Prince that was banished off of its own effect, or you can use it to bring back a King of the Skull Servants or just any of your white monsters, because we need 2 level 3s, which we can make in the deck with a White Princess and a Lady in White, or a Tsuchinoko and a Lady in White, or just any of these combo level 3s. And then we can target one of our banished level 4 or lower monsters and special summon that target to the field. Good extender, I don't use it that much. You can still use it for UDF line if you really wanted to, but I don't. You would basically have to get 4 level 3s on the field, which is very difficult for this deck to be able to go into UDF. So I would personally say you would run this line that I'm going to show you next. So running the 1 Leviair, we're going to run the 1 Ghost Trick Alucard and the 2 Ghost Trick Angel of Mischief. What you can do is Alucard can be summoned, can be XZ summoned off of 2 level 3s, overlaid for Angel of Mischief. Then you can detach Alucard to add the Ghost Trick Shot. Ghost Trick Shot will bring back the Alucard, and then you can overlay the Alucard again for a 2nd Ghost Trick Angel of Mischief, which will then fuel our line to go into UDF, which is through number F0 Utopic Future, overlaying for Utopic Draco Future. And that was mostly of our, that's all our XZs that we're going to be basically running. We're running the UDF line, which is going to be the F0 Utopic Future and the Utopic Draco Future. And then we're also running a Hope Harbinger because you can get access to multiple level 8s, either through Chaos Ruler plus a Bigfoot, or if you decide to run Thunderbird, you can run Thunderbird and Bigfoot. You can go that to this rank 8. There's other rank 8s you can use. I just like the Hope Harbinger because of the fact that it insulates us from spells. But it's useful. And you can also redirect attacks, which is pretty cool. So that covers our XZ monsters. We're going to go into our Link monsters. We're going to run 1 Linkaribo. We're going to run 1 Relinquished Anima. We're going to run 1 Barricade Board Blocker, a Curious, and a Nightmare Unicorn. Linkaribo can be used basically to, so if you normal summon a White Baking, you use Linkaribo to get it off the field, and that allows us to go into the White Baking effect. Later on, you'll leave the Linkaribo on the field, and you'll be able to bring out King of the Skull Servants. King of the Skull Servants can then be linked off from Relinquished Anima. And by that time, you'll also have a Lady in White in the field. So you have 3 different types of dark monsters. You have a Cybers, a Spellcaster, and a Zombie, which allows us to fuel into the Curious. And then we can use Curious to dump another White Prince or a Mizuki if we really want to, and then be able to just continue to mill and go through our deck and be able to try to OTK by using a King of the Skull Servants that we can bring back. The Barricade Board Blocker can also be used to go into the Curious lines because it's a dark machine that actually discards a card, even though you don't need to have a continuous or field spell in the graveyard. So it's just used for discard fodder, and Nightmare Unicorn is also just a discard fodder that you can use to spin a monster, which is pretty cool. So all these are mostly just used for Curious lines and just for discard, which is what the whole purpose of the deck is. Other than that, we're running a small fusion package, which is going to be a Mud Dragon of the Swamp and a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. If you have a Trifto Veritum, you can run that instead of Starving Venom Fusion and be able to use that as your Super Poly targets, but these are the main Super Poly targets that we have. We're only running 2 because most of the time you're never going to see the 3 Super Polys. You'll usually only see 1, and this is more of a situational thing that you can choose which one you want. And other than that, we're also running a Chaos Ruler as a Synchro 8. The only way that we can make it is by using a Unizombie, and oftentimes what we can do is we can Unizombie to send from deck a White Baking, and then discard also from our hand, making Unizombie level 5, and once we bring out our Lady in White, who's a level 3, we can make a Synchro 8, and be able to start milling through our deck and adding, which is really good. But that is the deck profile. Let's get off into some test hands. This is going to take a minute to shuffle, to say the least. So let's just talk while we're doing that. Nat season is coming up. I don't know personally if this deck will be too great for it. Unfortunately, with all the Despia just has way too much interaction in this format. Sword Soul puts up 2 or 3 negates plus a blackout. It really depends upon the how good their hand is. Unfortunately, because of the way that we're running this, we don't have hand traps, which means that we can't interrupt them going first. And as such, we basically just have to hope that we draw all the right cards to board break. But that's what makes Skull Servant fun. It's not a gambling deck, to say the least, but it allows us to basically, it's just fun because we have to see what we can do with our hands, which makes it very interesting because it's kind of a skill check deck, and seeing that, well, can I make these hands work? And it's also a luck deck in the sense of, let's hope that my dangers hit the right things, and also I get a good draw to be able to break their board. But let's do a test hand now. So, Danger Mothman, White Baking, Mizuki, Lady in White, Twin Twisters. That's actually a pretty good hand, I would say. So if they have any back row, we basically have combo here. What we can do is, usually I would try to get rid of the back row. So if it's like Branded Despia, for example, I don't think they can really play through this. what you can do is you can Twin Twisters, discarding, in this case, if you know that they don't have any interruption, we can discard Mothman actually, popping their back row. They'll be forced to use it to go into Guardian Chimera to try to get their draws. Then what you can do is activate Danger Mothman. From Danger Mothman, we can draw one. Skull Servant. Unfortunately, these are the bricks, and I really hate seeing them. But from here, we can discard White Baking. White Baking will activate to allow us to send, or to grab. We're going to grab a, where is it? White Prince, and we're going to grab a White Mare. From here, we're going to dump the White Prince. White Prince effect is going to activate. We're going to send a Lady in White and Skull Servant from the deck. So we're going to send Skull Servant, and we're going to send a... Ooh. This is the only problem with 60 cards. You just have to take so long to go through these. You're going to send Lady in White, and then what you're going to do now is you're going to activate White Prince, banishing the Skull Servant and Lady in White, and you're going to be able to summon out a King of the Skull Servants. Dun, 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 dun. There, King of the Skull Servants. And now what we can do is we haven't used our normal summon. So what we could possibly do here is we can basically activate White Mare, tossing it to special summon Lady in White. I would probably link, like, so here's the weird portion. You can basically normal summon Mizuki here. So if I was to normal summon Mizuki, we're able to, what is it? If you normal Mizuki, you have 3 monsters here. What you could do is you can link off the Mizuki plus a Lady in White to go into a Barricade board blocker, dump this to keep on fueling our King of the Skull Servants, because right now our King of the Skull Servants is 2k, because we have 2 whites in the graveyard. If we wanted to continue going on, and we didn't want to have to use the Mizuki here, what we could do is we could normal summon Skull Servant. From here, we can link off the Skull Servant into a Linkaribo, and then link off King into a Relinquished Anima. From here, we can use the Relinquished Anima plus the Linkaribo and Lady in White to go into Curious, which is oftentimes what I would do. I like the Mizuki. We don't really have a way to discard it right now, but that's fine. We can use it as follow-up if we really have to. We can activate Curious's effect. We can dump a White Prince. Where is it? So we dump White Prince. Then we're going to activate as Chainlink 1 Curious, Chainlink 2 White Prince, because we don't want to be milling our Skull Servants accidentally before White Prince resolves. So White Prince is going to activate. We're going to clear our deck of the Skull Servant, and we're going to clear it of the Lady in White. So now we have no more White Prince plays, unfortunately. We have, because we have a Skull Servant in the graveyard already, which means you have to send both because we have one in the hand, which means that we're kind of bricked out of that, unfortunately, but it's fine. From here, Curious is going to mill 3, because if a card is sent to your graveyard by card effect, we can send top 3 to our deck. So we hit a White Mare, a King of the Skull Servants, and a Danger Chupacabra, which means that right now what we could also do is, because if we look at the graveyard, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10. So what we can do is we can banish the White Prince, banish a Lady in White and Skull Servant again. You don't have to banish those, but I just like banishing it. And then we're going to bring out a King of the Skull Servant from the deck. And then, where is it? So much going through the deck with this. Only issue is 60 cards. You're going to summon a King of the Skull Servant. Our King of the Soul Servant is now, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 7k. So, if it's 7k, which is fine, you have a total of 9,400 on this board. If they didn't weren't able to break the board, it's all right. This hand was kind of mediocre, unfortunately, because we drew the Lady in White. It means we couldn't trigger another White Prince. But usually, if you have the right hands, you're able to get your King of the Skull Servant up to like 11k. And then 11k plus the Curious is usually more than enough. We also have the Mizuki in the hand and the Lady in White, which is kind of mediocre. Going second, you can definitely break their board with this and force out certain things. You can attack the Mirror Jade, which would unfortunately be wipe the King of the Skull Servant, but it would also wipe the Curious, meaning that you can add back a card from your graveyard to your hand, which is pretty good, and allows you further follow-up play, because if I'm going second and I can break their board but I can't kill them, this is still more than enough usually for them to deal with, because of the fact that they have to get rid of the King of the Skull Servants because they can't attack over it. They have to get rid of the Curious because they have to attack over that also. And if they attack over the Curious, like let's say it's turn 3 and they don't really have much follow-up, the Curious will go off, allowing us to add back King of the Skull Servants, which means that next turn, if they don't have anything, like if they don't have any interruption, we just normal summon King of the Skull Servants, attack for game. Very similar kind of like to Gren Maju in a sense. This is basically graveyard Gren Maju versus versus a banished Gren Maju, which is why I really like this deck, because it makes it so much more versatile in the sense that you can just attack over a lot of things. And if we were going to next turn, we would just hit like a, yeah, White Mare would basically win us the game right here. We just White Mare, bring back Lady in White. That means that our King of the Skull Servant's 8k and it's insulated against spells and traps, which is mostly what you got to deal with in that game. But that was just a test hand, and I hope this gives you like a general idea of what you can do with the deck. I hope you guys all enjoyed this deck profile, and leave a like and comment in the comment section if you want. I do read them and I do respond to them. I enjoy reading all your comments and whatever you guys have to say. It allows me actually to get better in being able to build these deck profiles and being able just to get better as a Yu-Gi-Oh player. Hope you all enjoy, and until next time.